This video is sponsored by Ground News. Lake Mead's water levels are currently at their highest levels in 3 years. Throughout this year, water levels at the reservoir have been steadily increasing, providing much needed relief for the entire region. But rising water levels at the reservoir are not predicted to last, leading to long-term problems for the water supply throughout the American Southwest. Therefore, what does the future hold for Lake Mead and the Colorado River? And how will rising water levels impact the future of this region? As of April of 2024, Lake Mead's water level had reached an elevation of 1,075 feet above sea level. This may not seem significant at first glance, but it represents the reservoir's highest water level since July of 2021, a remarkable recovery after years of steady decline. This turnaround has brought renewed hope to the region, which relies on Lake Mead as a crucial water source for millions of people. Just 2 years ago, the situation at Lake Mead was dire. Water levels had dropped to around 1,050 feet, triggering the first ever federal shortage declaration for the Colorado River Basin. At that point, the reservoir was only about 28% full, immensely far from its capacity of nearly 28 million acre-feet of water. The impacts of low water levels were severe. Hydropower generation at the Hoover Dam was reduced, and water supplies to cities like Las Vegas were severely threatened. The declaration of a shortage meant that cuts to water supplies from Lake Mead would be mandatory. Arizona, Nevada, and Mexico all faced reductions to their allocated shares of water from the reservoir. For example, Arizona's annual appointment from Lake Mead was cut by 21%, a reduction in nearly 600,000 acre-feet of water, enough to supply over 1 million households for a year. However, rising water levels have brought a much-needed sigh of relief to the American Southwest, and the reasons behind this recent resurgence are multi-faced. The winter of 2023 through 2024 brought heavy snowfall to this entire region, resulting in snowpack that was well above the historical average. Recognizing the severity of drought conditions, these southwestern states agreed to implement various water conservation measures, reducing their overall consumption from the river. But one of the most significant contributors to Lake Mead's rising water levels was an experimental water release from Lake Powell, located upstream in Utah and Arizona. In April of 2023, the Bureau of Reclamation initiated a high-flow experiment, releasing a controlled surge of water from Lake Powell over a 4-month period. The primary goal of this release was twofold. First, to protect the critical infrastructure at Lake Powell, such as the Glen Canyon Dam and its hydropower facilities. These facilities were in danger of becoming inoperable due to low water levels. Secondly, the release aimed to raise the levels of Lake Mead, the reservoir located downstream that serves as a vital source of water for millions of people. These efforts have had positive impacts on the reservoir over the past 12 months. And while the resurgence of water levels at Lake Mead is undoubtedly a positive development, it's crucial to recognize that this is temporary and does not invalidate long-term challenges. Addressing an issue of this complexity requires a comprehensive understanding that goes beyond surface-level headlines or partisan narratives, which is why I partnered with Ground News to make this video possible. Their platform curates coverage from thousands of sources across the political spectrum and gives you a breakdown of a media outlet's political bias. Let me show you how it works. I came across this article on mass chloral bleaching as a result of climate change. Ground News shows that 76 articles have been published on this topic, with the majority of the sources in the center on the bias distribution. If you care about the truth like I do and are tired of the misleading media narratives, then you really need to be using Ground News. I highly recommend you check out their site. Ground News has even helped me produce many videos on the Arkive channel, allowing me to check for bias in the articles that I'm using. Visit ground.news/archive to cut through the shady headlines and come to your own conclusions about the news. Subscribe through my link and get 40% off their Vantage plan, using the link in the description. One of the biggest hurdles in addressing the water crisis has been the political tensions and challenges surrounding water rights and resource allocation among the 7 basin states. With limited water supplies, there's constant negotiation and often conflict over how the shares should be divided equally. The 7 basin states all have different interests and priorities when it comes to utilizing the Colorado River. Agricultural regions like California's Imperial Valley require substantial allocations for irrigation, while booming cities like Phoenix, Las Vegas, and Denver have rapidly growing municipal demands. Balancing these competing needs is an enormously complex undertaking. Furthermore, the prioritization of water rights is based on a framework that was established decades ago and is being called into question. Resolving these long-standing power imbalances will need to be part of a long-term sustainable solution. Another critical component in addressing the long-term water crisis is exploring and implementing strategies to ensure sustainable water supply for the future. Simply relying on reservoirs like Lake Mead is no longer a viable long-term solution. Water managers and authorities are actively pursuing a new approach that involves developing alternative water sources, promoting efficient usage, and investing into new technologies and infrastructure. While the recent rise in water levels at Lake Mead has provided temporary relief, the harsh reality is that the Colorado River Basin remains challenged. Even with this year's much-needed runoff, Lake Mead is still projected to continue its long-term decline in the years ahead. The reservoir currently sits at just 35% of its total capacity. Without widespread action to protect the reservoir, the consequences could be catastrophic for the 25 million people that depend on Lake Mead throughout the Southwest. For now, only time will tell how rising water levels play a role in Lake Mead's future. If you enjoyed the video, consider subscribing, and thanks again to Ground News for making this video possible.